Pakistani love. The monsoon clouds hung heavy over Lahore, casting shadows across the Shalimar Gardens where Ayesha sat on a weathered stone bench, her dupatta fluttering in the pre-rain breeze. She came here every evening at sunset, finding solace among the Mughal fountains and ancient cypress trees. Today marked exactly 1 year since her world had changed forever. Ayesha was a schoolteacher in her late 20s, with kind eyes that held both warmth and an inexplicable sadness. She lived with her parents in the old city, in a haveli that had belonged to her family for generations. Her life followed a predictable rhythm: morning prayers, classes filled with eager children, evening walks, and then home to help her mother prepare dinner. It was a good life, a respectable life, but somewhere deep inside she felt incomplete. That incompleteness had a name: Hamza. They had met 3 years ago at a wedding, her cousin's Mendi ceremony. Hamza was the groom's friend, a civil engineer who had recently returned from Karachi after completing his studies. Ayesha noticed him first across the crowded courtyard, not because he was particularly striking, but because of the way he smiled, genuinely reaching his eyes as he spoke with the elderly guests who others often overlooked. Their first conversation happened by accident. She had been carrying a tray of chai cups when someone bumped into her. Hamza caught the tray before it could crash to the ground, steadying it with quick reflexes. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment, something shifted in the universe. "Careful," he said softly, his voice gentle. "Though I think these cups are tougher than they look, just like the person carrying them." Ayesha felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you. You saved my mother's favorite tea set." "Then I've earned some good karma today," he replied with that same genuine smile. "I'm Hamza." Ayesha. What began as simple pleasantries evolved into hours of conversation that evening. They talked about everything: poetry, dreams, the changing face of Pakistan, their favorite childhood memories of eating kulfi on hot summer nights. Hamza recited Faiz Ahmed Faiz, and Ayesha countered with Parveen Shakir. They discovered they both loved old Pakistani films, both believed education could transform their country, and both felt a deep connection to their heritage while dreaming of progress. As the Mendi celebration continued around them, they found themselves in their own world, oblivious to the knowing glances and whispered speculations of the aunties watching from the sidelines. Over the following months, they met when propriety allowed, always in public, always with respect for traditions. Hamza would happen to be at the bookshop when Ayesha browsed for teaching materials. They would coincidentally attend the same lectures at the Al-Hamra Arts Council. Slowly, carefully, they built something beautiful. Hamza met her father after 6 months of these coincidental meetings. He came formally with his parents, bringing the traditional mithai and flowers. He spoke with eloquence about his career, his values, his intentions. Ayesha's father, a retired professor with sharp eyes that missed nothing, asked difficult questions. Hamza answered each one honestly. "I cannot promise her wealth," Hamza said, looking directly at Ayesha's father. "But I can promise her respect, partnership, and a love that will honor her every single day of my life." Ayesha watched from behind the door, her heart swelling with hope. But life, as it often does in the most unexpected moments, had other plans. 2 days before their engagement ceremony, Hamza's father suffered a massive heart attack. He survived, but the medical bills were devastating. Hamza's family, though respectable, was not wealthy. They had spent their savings on his education, believing it would secure their future. Now, with ongoing medical expenses and his younger sister's education to consider, Hamza found himself drowning in responsibilities. He came to Ayesha one evening at the gardens, his face drawn with sleepless nights. "I cannot ask you to wait," he said, his voice breaking. "It will take me years to save enough to give you the life you deserve. Your father was right to have doubts about my financial situation. I was foolish to think love alone would be enough." Ayesha felt her world tilt. "Love is enough. We can have a simple wedding." "We can." "No," Hamza interrupted gently but firmly. "I will not have people whisper that I married above my station, that you settled for less. I will not have you sacrifice your comfort, your security. You deserve someone who can provide for you properly, now, not in some uncertain future." "You're talking about me like I'm some fragile thing that needs golden cages and silk cushions," Ayesha said, her voice rising with frustration and pain. "I'm a teacher. I earn my own salary. I don't need—" "But I need this," Hamza said quietly. "I need to come to you as an equal, not as a burden. Please, Ayesha, let me go." Let me fix my family situation. If Allah wills it, if you're still free when I'm able to stand on my own feet again, then perhaps—" He didn't finish. He simply touched his hand to his heart in a gesture of deep respect and walked away, leaving Ayesha standing alone as the first drops of monsoon rain began to fall. That was 1 year ago. Now, as Ayesha sat in the same gardens, she thought about the proposal she had received last week. A doctor, well-established, from a good family. Her parents were encouraging her to consider it seriously. She was approaching 30. They reminded her gently. Time was passing. She knew they were right in practical terms. She knew Hamza had been honorable in walking away. She knew she should move forward with her life. But her heart remained stubbornly anchored to a man who had chosen dignity over desire, duty over dreams. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Ayesha's head snapped up. Standing before her, thinner than she remembered but with those same kind eyes, was Hamza. For a moment she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. What are you doing here?" she finally managed. "I came to tell you something," he said, sitting down beside her but maintaining a respectful distance. "My father is recovering well. My sister received a scholarship for her studies. And I got promoted. I'm now heading a major infrastructure project for the city." Ayesha's heart was hammering. "I'm happy for you." "But that's not why I'm really here," Hamza continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here because I learned something this past year. I learned that pride can masquerade as honor. I learned that protecting someone from hardship can sometimes be just another way of not trusting them. I learned that I was wrong." He turned to face her fully. "You tried to tell me that love was enough, that we could build together rather than waiting until everything was perfect. I didn't listen because I was so caught up in being the provider, the protector, that I forgot to be your partner. Forgot to give you a choice." Tears were streaming down Ayesha's face now. "I don't have everything figured out," Hamza said softly. "I probably never will. But I'm stable now, and more importantly, I understand now that a marriage is not about one person providing for another. It's about two people building a life together, with all its imperfections and challenges. So I'm here to ask, would you still consider building that life with me?" Ayesha looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the year of hardship etched in the lines around his eyes, but also the growth, the wisdom earned through struggle. She saw a man who had learned to balance cultural expectations with partnership, tradition with progress. "There's a doctor," she said quietly. "A proposal." Hamza's face fell, but he nodded with dignity. "Of course, I have no right to expect." "I haven't given him an answer yet," Ayesha interrupted. "I kept finding excuses to delay. My mother thinks I'm being foolish. Maybe I am." "You're not foolish," Hamza said firmly. "You're true to yourself, and that's the bravest thing anyone can be." Ayesha wiped her tears and smiled, a real smile for the first time in a year. "Do you still remember Faiz's poetry?" Hamza's eyes lit with understanding and hope. He began to recite softly. "Aur bi gam hein zamani, mein mohabbat kasiva. Rahaten aur bi hein wassel ki rahat kasiva." "There are other sorrows in the world besides love," Ayesha continued the verse. "Other comforts besides the comfort of union." They finished together. But who has time for those? In that moment, surrounded by the history of the Shalimar Gardens, under the gathering monsoon clouds, two hearts found their way back to each other. Not because everything was perfect, not because all obstacles had vanished, but because they had learned that true love, Pakistani love, rooted in respect, honor, and partnership, was worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth choosing again and again. 3 months later, in that same garden, surrounded by family and friends, Hamza and Ayesha were married in a simple ceremony that celebrated not wealth or status, but the triumph of patience, growth, and enduring love. As they walked together under a canopy of rose petals, they carried with them the wisdom that the best love stories are not about fairy tale perfection, but about two imperfect people choosing each other, building together, and honoring both tradition and progress in equal measure. Their story became one whispered by the aunties at weddings, told to young couples facing obstacles, a reminder that true love, when rooted in respect and partnership, can weather any storm, even in a world that often demands we choose between our hearts and our duties. They chose both, and in doing so, wrote their own beautiful chapter of Pakistani love.